leaders. Thank you so much for being here with me and Valentina in this amazing and really, really interesting and hard to understand for a ton of people, like regular folks don't understand what diversity means and how they can advocate for them. So I'm Diego. I'm the founder of World Leadership. I'm happy to be here with you all. What is world leadership? Well, it's the place where thought leadership converges. So it's an ecosystem that helps leaders grow, learn, and connect with like-minded peers. The cool thing about world leadership is that it's about leadership. We don't speak specifically about design, product, engineering, marketing, sales, finance. It's as not agnostic to those areas. We speak about leadership, so we speak about hiring, scaling, de-scaling, working with lean teams, the difference between management and leadership. We speak about so many, many, many things. We have content in Spanish, we have content in English, mainly, and in Portuguese. If you speak another language, please let me know so we can work on something. So today we are hosting a Hearthside session. So why did we choose that name? We should have fireplace, chats, campfire like at Envision. But Hearthside for me was really, really cool because even though in my house I didn't have a fireplace, it was cool to gather in the living room because outside was way too cold to do that. And we got to speak with friends and family. So I'm trying to replicate that. And what do I mean with that? Is that anybody can jump in the conversation. So please, if you have a question, if you want to share an idea, jump in. Today we'll be discussing diversity in the workplace with my friend Valentina. Valentina is a design leader from Uruguay, now living in Germany, I think in Berlin. So yes, she's
Not
the head of
Berlin,
UI.
but actually Munich. So the other side.
Munich, I'm so sorry, Munich. So we will be talking about diversity in the workplace. She's the head of UI and UX at Kronos. So welcome, Valentina. Thank you so much for being here and for having this conversation in English with all of us.
No, thank you for the invitation. I hope you can hear me right. And if not, please,
Yes.
Diego, give me a notice because Germany is like a very great machine, but with the worst Wi-Fi possible. So that's one thing to really keep in mind. In any case, let me know, and I will open the door, attempt everything I can, connect to my phone, so you can hear me better.
I can
Yeah,
hear you
and
fantastic. Yes.
super. So yeah, I am Valentina. I am originally from Uruguay, 34 years old. I've been living in Germany for 10 years now. Actually, this is my 10th year. So we are in an anniversary celebration. And
Congratulations on that.
yeah, made it. Hope we can get 10, 20 more. So yeah, I am head of UX UI at Krones, which is actually a machinery manufacturing company with many, many years of history, which is diving very deep into digitalization at the moment, automation, and everything that is impacting every industry at the moment when it comes to smart technology. Um, so yeah, before that, because I'm actually there since 6 months now, I come from the agency world. So
Mhm.
I was there diving for a long, long time as well, almost 10 years, very focused only on agencies, which means that I went through all of the kind of industries that might have been doing products, digital products always, mobile applications, web applications, anything. And now I am doing a little bit of other stuff more related to machinery. So heavy design, and yeah, I'm excited because I keep learning, I keep meeting people, and more related to what we're talking here today, I got the chance to lead teams that were not really local, but going cross country, cross continents. And I think this is a super interesting topic to dive in, especially now and in the future, because many, many people are working remotely, and we know the opportunities that bring to us as leaders and also to the companies to have a more diverse environment and very easily, but it's not as easy as it seems. So that's also another interesting corner to discuss of the topic. And yeah, thank you for the invitation. Can't wait to start. I really encourage everyone who is taking part of this discussion to ask questions, doubts, challenge me as well with my thoughts. And yeah, let's make this really interactive and fun. And yeah,
Okay.
as a learning opportunity.
So a couple of context questions and comments. One thing that why we chose Valentina is because she was born in Uruguay. She isn't a native speaker of English or German, but she is now working there in English in an amazing and an enormous corporation. So how hard for you was to achieve that, Valentina, as being Uruguayan?
To be honest, it was quite of a shock for myself when I first moved here, of course. So it's already 10 years now. It's a very different situation than at the beginning. But I really underestimated the language, to be honest. I could talk
Mhm,
very
mhm.
good English at the in my hometown in Uruguay, no problem with English. But when I landed here, it was like, okay, this is not as easy. And I really wanted to make it right, so I got enrolled in something that is called here integration course that they organize specially for people who moved from other countries. With different cultures as well. So it's a mixture of a language intensive course for 6 months together with a little bit of culture, economics, how the society behaves, what are
Mhm.
the subjectivities. Like it's very, very well adapted, and that kind of helped me to, of course, not feel the shock so strong at the beginning. But it takes time, and you need to feel like you can be flexible enough to adapt, which luckily I feel I was capable, but it's not the same for everyone. I don't think Germany is for everyone. I think each person should choose very wisely where they want to land on, depending on their character, personality, and what they're searching for. But for me, it was a good fit. I never regretted it. On the contrary, I always push forward. Now my German is fairly better, but not perfect yet, and I will keep fighting for that achievement. Someday I will get it done. But yeah, it's not easy. Of course, it's a culture shock. There are many things that you need to learn through the way, or the hard way, most of the times, and you get through it. But you learn so much, and you acquire so much flexibility for your entire life, also personal life, not only work place. So that's for me the greatest advantage, to acquire more flexibility, to be able to deal with things when they are not exactly as I expected it. So I think it's a game in the end, and not everything is for everyone, but that's, I think, known. And it's also not perfection. I think it's really a choice to make. But
Okay.
yeah, I didn't come because I needed a job or anything. I really came looking for a change, for a challenge, to grow, and for something different.
Okay, so according to what we are hearing, is that at least Munich and your company really wanted a diverse team, and that's why they invested so much time and energy and money in having you, which I think makes you, I'm speaking on your behalf, uh, more sensitive towards these topics, because sometimes you don't see that. Like, if you are born, and I have a ton of examples, if you're born in Seattle in the US, it's not your fault that you don't understand diversity or that you don't see the value there. It's because you simply don't know that exists. And sometimes a lot of those people are like, diversity sounds like, oh, are we hiring just because of the quota? Are we hiring just because they are a corrupt person? Are because they are from immigrants? Because other things, not because what they can give to the company. So I'm thinking those things because I have seen that, and I know it's kind of, oh, Diego, don't say that, but that is what's happening. A ton of people don't have that sensitivity. It's not their fault because they don't teach us that anywhere. You have to learn that, and sometimes it's like, for example, me when I speak to black women in tech, it's like we don't see a lot of them. And when I speak with them, it's like, Diego, I'm so alone. There's no DEI work here in my company, in my industry. So I need to work harder. And you know what happens? Like, hey, they think I'm a toxic woman, I'm a toxic whatever. So knowing that, Valentina, what are you doing, or how Crones define diversity? So you have like metrics, you know what you are doing, that you are hiring the best people within this context. So can you give us the definition of diversity, at least, well, if not in Crones, at least in your workplace, in your team, in your business unit?
Well, diversity this is a good way to start on the topic, because it's not only what we see. There is many diversity that our eyes don't see, and it's also about respecting the individuality of each person beyond their culture, beyond their age, race, ethnicity, language they speak, socioeconomical backgrounds. There are so many aspects that can make us different, and it's as simple as that. And I love to compare it to something that designers, like we designers, do the whole time, which is personas creation when we start with research. And actually personas are based on such characteristics, and you can talk about demographics, you can talk about well, people who are disabled, sexual orientation, gender. But in the end, it's a lot more complex than that, and you need to dive in a lot more than that. It's just the surface, right? You get to conclude some things, you get to know people generically from that start point, but then you really need to dig into the individuality, because each person has kind of like a different key that you need to unlock for their own motivation. Why do they do the work they do? Why did they choose that? How does their personal life look like? And many times culture strictly kind of defines that in many ways, right? Probably my personal life or my routines is very similar to someone from Uruguay, or now also someone who lives in Germany, but not exactly the same, right? So it's also not good to generalize. But talking about companies like Krones, where I am right now, these companies are growing immensely and going global. That's the main change, disruption, and remote work enabled that for sure. It made it a lot easier to go through borders, and the fact that you need to go global in order to sell products today, nowadays, also to survive in the market, you need to go and open those doors to diversity, so you can have employees ideally on every location that you are also having a brand presence and you want to grow your market. So in that sense, it's highly beneficial if you have people where you want to have presence in the business side of things. So this is where Kronos is standing at the moment. For example, they just opened a few offices, for example, in India, in Pilsen, Czech Republic, and this is just the start. Uh, from the agency I come from, they had the same path, and this is something that I'm seeing everywhere. Unless you are a startup or a small company, very local, you need to go cross countries in order to grow and survive and be a real competitor. Because if you are not global, you will not compete on the real big players, you know. And that's something that I think there is no escape, and it's a great thing for humanity as a whole. Because finally, if you want to work for this or that company, it doesn't necessarily mean that you will need to leave your country if you don't want to. You can do it all from wherever you are at the moment. And that will just enlarge opportunities. And of course, at the same time, for companies, it would enlarge their scope, their vision to the world, how they get results done, what kind of results they get, what methods they have, because this is also something that capabilities, the way people work, how they apply their skills, this will also slightly vary from country to country, and not necessarily better or worse in that sense. It's just different, and you need to be able to appreciate that difference and be able to take the value out of it, and kind of direct it in a way that you get the advantages and the benefits in the end. So
Okay.
I think this is just the way for every company, at least if you want to be a significant player in the market you are.
Okay. I want to speak a little more about metrics and how do you measure that if you have a way of measuring that. Like, uh, how do you measure like, hey, we are a diverse place? Is it about having like equity, about people working there, employees? Uh, how do you measure that in your team, Valentin? Is there a way to
Well,
do that?
that's if from the example I can give you from my team at the moment, I am starting with a fairly smaller team than at least what I
Mhm.
had previously because it's around 8 people. And of course, I'm just at the beginning and I have a plan ahead for recruitment and so on, which needs to go wider. At the moment, I have people from 3 different countries, including Germany, but it's still very much at the beginning, I would say. In the past, I had over 3 continents, several countries at the same time, over 30 people, different positioned roles, very mixed up. And that's a challenge on its own. Of course, I think HR has a great responsibility keeping on the quotas, let's say, but quotas are also not that great when you are constantly measuring that. Some people might think that's too fixed, let's say, and I get that. So I think we should always balance and always see also what is the how is our team functioning? What are the kind of outputs that we need? What is the kind of team collaboration we need to achieve? What would be the
Mhm.
ideal setup? What is the realistic goals that you can set for your team? Because I don't think it's a jump that you can set from 1 to a couple of months to say I go global. And if you don't have awareness on the team regarding differences of cultures, if the people will put resistance, which is very, very common, and it would be totally normal for a while, this will just crash. So you need to do it right. You need to do it with time. There is something that companies do that I really value. That is this. You should always have a blueprint with the company values that you hand off to your employees when they start, because this is a way also to set the ground, the common ground among all regarding how we work together, what kind of attitudes are right towards others, and all of those kind of things that might not be obvious for everyone when they start in a company, especially if you come from another country and certain things might be quite different. We even discussed some in private about when you go into meetings, how you introduce yourself. Do you say hello? Do you jump directly into the hard topics? Or do you do some small talk at the beginning? And that's very, very cultural. And it
Mhm.
can be very different between Latin people, between German people, between people from USA. And you need to address that, even more importantly, if you have customers that are in other countries, because you need to have that into account before you start those conversations. So it has many corners. But to answer precisely your question regarding the quotas, Germany has certain ways to assure that diversity is there and assured, but not really with numbers, at least that I'm aware of. Um, for example, in USA, when you apply to a job, usually you need to fill a form and you say if you have any disability or you belong to a minority group. Here, that's not common at all. Those questions will not be strictly asked, but you will talk a little bit about your personal life, about yourself, and it's important that the people who are interviewing you are not biased. And of course, that's not avoidable 100%. People are biased always a little bit. So it's good to have second, third opinions going into those calls and seeing how you present yourself, and then that it's a group decision more than a one-person decision, because that could be fully biased. So I think the recruitment processes here in Germany are very fair from that point of view, because it's a very open conversation at the same time. and the expectations are very clear. And usually, at least me being a woman and Latin, I never felt that I was being discarded or diminished having a conversation just because of my background or my gender. Talking generically, that can be very different, of course. And maybe I was lucky due to the companies I got in. Could be. I have worked in a total of 4 companies here in Germany, and
Mhm.
you cannot assure that everything is exactly the same. I think smaller companies might have it harder because, of course, HR departments are fairly smaller as well, and you have less people working towards those things. But in big companies, nowadays it's very valued. You have a lot of people who are pushing towards diversity, making sure that everything is balanced, that the people are respected, that their individuality is respected. That's the main thing, right? Respect everyone's individuality in the end, beyond their culture, race, and anything else.
Okay, thank you for that. So Lucia has a question. Do you want to ask it, Lucia, or do you want me to read it?
Oh, yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Hello,
Hi.
Valentina. Thank you. Thank you for exposing your point of view. I'm the lead of a UX UI team at Avatar, and we have a diverse group all over the world. We have people from different backgrounds, and I want to kind of share. Or I would like you to share with us your tools or methodologies that you put into the playground to build uh, teamwork and a good environment among the team, right? Because it's not only we as the leaders embracing diversity, but also create a culture of embracing that.
Completely. And like I said at the beginning, it's nothing easy, especially if you're a leader and you need to set that ground and example, and you need to also push for patience at the beginning, because people tend to be very quickly with judgment or first impressions, and you need to work towards that. You need to work through that, and always push a little bit, so that there is more empathy. And to generate that kind of empathy, we had some formats that I like to do, especially when you have teams that really go cross borders, beyond work, like actual work, hands-on work. You need to get the people to know each other and to know each other's culture and specifics. So small talk for that is great. And I used to have a format on a previous company in which, for example, there were a lot of people at the group. So every person, every 2 weeks, every one of us met. And in that meeting, every time someone new came into the team, he had to prepare a presentation, but a presentation only about his life, like what does he like to do, where country does he come from, what are the typical things to do in your country, what are some particularities, even uh, going beyond cliches, right? Because that's very easy to fall into. And I always motivate a little bit of small talk, because otherwise it's very, very hard for you to know people and respect their particularities that is coming from a culture or whatever. And in the end, if you do this, it would enable a good relation, less friction with the people, and that is what in the end makes easy team collaboration. Because team collaboration is always a give and take a little bit. Sometimes you meet a match, which is a person that maybe is very much like you, and it's extremely easy to do things because you know how the other person works. Usually it's not like that. Team collaboration demands energy from both sides, a lot of empathy. If you are from the same culture, maybe it's easier, probably, right? But we all know, I think, that sometimes that's not even the main conditional. Sometimes there are very different personalities that have it harder to collaborate together, and it's not really coming from a culture perspective. And at least from my learning, language has also been a topic, and it's not really something that people do on purpose or out of wanting to have a good willingness, let's say, of working with the other person. but mainly because of shame of making mistakes. I try to hold back. I don't talk English because you notice my grammar mistakes. I can totally empathize with that because my German has a lot of grammar mistakes. So in that sense, I always try to encourage people and also say, as a leader, I make a lot of mistakes and I don't expect people to be perfect, and that's very important also. And that um, if you grab a team, for example, in another country that goes cross borders and does not have the same capabilities as you might be used to having in your team where you are right now, you need to be patient. You need to learn learn to get to know them and see what are their real skills. Also see the particularities of how they work. Ask them about their work schedule. For example, what time you start? Do you do a lunch break? What do you do after work usually? Do you have a very active social life in the week or not so much? I think all of those things will help you also define the best way to motivate those employees as well, and then to help them connect with others, because you can be that link in the end that helps them get closer to the rest of the team, which might be a little bit more reluctant. But I think leaders are a little bit like parents in that sense, and they need to help found those relations beyond whatever aspects that might make us different. And I completely recognize that it's not easy and that it takes time. And but it's very important that leaders maintain the line and never give in, so that you never, if someone is frustrated with another person from another location, let's say, on how the collaboration is going, never get on that boat. Try to bring understanding towards the other side and the other side towards this. So you need to be the facilitator in that sense, and this is why you need great empathy towards both sides. And if you feel a kind of like a little bit belonging to both cultures, even better. To me, this happens a lot when I work with people from Latin America or even from USA, because I think we have a lot of similarities as well. And well, now that I live here since 10 years, I also feel a little bit German. So I can really understand both sides struggles, and also the nice things that are appreciated from one side towards the other, because people don't notice that, but Germans admire many things of Latin people or USA people, and vice versa. And it's good when you make them aware of that, because they feel a little bit proud even from their culture, and then everything goes easier, let's say.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Lucia
Thank you.
and Valentina. Because I will play the devil's advocate. Anybody has a question or a comment before we jump into that? Okay, so I've been working with leaders for a few years now from all kinds of industries, all sizes, and they often tell me, Diego, as Valentina said, it's more work to try to create the culture and to get diverse points of view and make people that are so different, like really different. It's more work, to be honest. Like, how do you understand them? Language, background, values, the way they think, the way they represent themselves, the way they speak. So they tell me, Diego, why that makes sense? Why do I need to invest money, time, energy, business resources doing that if I can have a team based in the US or whatever country? Like, I can speak in Mexico, right? Like, why should we hire people from Brazil or South America if I know there will be fights among them and the way of working, the way of speaking? So, Valentina, what can you tell to those people, like why it makes sense to invest so much resources in having a diverse team?
Well, I think at the beginning is like when you make an investment in pretty much everything. You will have the pain and you will go through it and you will have to do the work so that investment brings you the value in return that you're expecting. And if you don't do the work, it will probably not come along. So this is why it's important to highlight that it's not easy, but it has a purpose of being. People are not doing just because companies are not doing just for the sake of saving money or something like that. You have a lot of benefits from the point of view of the outcomes that you get. And like I said, if you want to have the benefit of also having presence, real presence on every country, on every continent, to have proximity to your customers, if you happen to work with customers, that is a huge advantage. Not even to talk about particularities, that if you're a leader, you don't have to know absolutely everything about every global market out there. You can maybe rely a little bit more also on the people that you have there and learn from them. In the end, of course, if they get to work together and you tell me, we talk about real design results, very specific, okay, the output might be a lot richer. And maybe people from this side will have things in mind that the people here did not take into account because they think in a different way, because different mindsets are a real thing between different cultures or whatever aspect we're looking into diversity, because of course it goes beyond the actual country that you come from. But it's worth it. And I think many companies enjoy the benefits since years ago already. Now it's going general, let's say. Remote work enables a lot and will keep enabling a lot more, I think. But if you want to have a team working 24 hours, let's say, what more advantage than having every time zone covered in the world? Like, you can think of so many advantages that it never ends. And of course, it's not the same to have a team of all of the same kind of people than if you have a very mixed up team of personalities, of people who bring different spices into the recipe, because that's a thing in life for everyone, I think, as well. I doubt that people normally have their group of friends that are all of the same kind, and there is a reason for that. It's because in the end, everything is a much richer experience if you are different with each other, and you can get takeouts of the other people the whole time and learn as well. But
Okay.
how boring would life be if we were all the same?
Got it. I have more devil's questions, but Lindsay, please go ahead.
Hi. So I agree with everything you just said. I've been a design leader in some firms where I'm trying to introduce this, and there have been times where I've had to strongly advocate and almost like come up with proof cases of like, hey, here's why it's beneficial to hire someone in Ireland. Here's why it's beneficial for us to hire someone here. Let alone, here's why it's beneficial for me to not hire the white guy. What I find when companies start to build this up is that they naturally break it down. Maybe other teams challenge it. Maybe other things are going on. And it ends up being anyone who's regionally located becomes a pod of people working on things. And so the moment you want to try to break that back up, you get more friction because it's like, oh, well, they're not in my time zone. It's like, well, true, they're not, but here's the benefits you get from going with them. And I bring all of this up because all of the points you made are valid, but in my personal life, I find that if someone has developed the kind of personality where they want to be at the helm, they want to have everyone following them, none of that makes sense to them by default. But if there's someone who wants to be more, like they want to help steer the ship, but they don't have to be the captain, then all of that makes sense to them. You don't have to, you can coach them every now and then, but you don't have to be their cheerleader every day. I don't find so many of those kind of executive leaders in a lot of companies. But then again, I've worked with some organizations out of France. I've worked with some organizations out of Canada, but the majority of them have been out of America. I find that for the vast majority of it, I have to be a cheerleader. And if I ever slip up and do the wrong kind of cheer, I've just validated their point against the fact. So it's like,
Yeah, yeah, I see what you're saying there because I've lived through it as well many times. That of course you have both kind of people when we talk about productivity, right? Or people who are comfortable with the uncomfortable and still motivated to keep going and push through the boundaries and what's stereotypical. And people who are not so eager to go into that, and like you said, they like to be followed. And um, you will have it harder with some people than others. That's no question. I think it heavily depends on us leaders, but it's good to clarify that I don't think it's possible to do it as a one-man mission. I don't think that only the leader or the manager can solve it all. I think you really need a support network below that is actually organizing things that make the team spirit grow and be built up. And with that, I'm talking about, for example, HR departments organizing integration team events, which is something that you see a lot nowadays, but not in every company. And usually when budgets are limited, like at the moment, which is very common because we're not on the best economical situation. But those things help. So if you get the employees to organize such things on with you, even if you don't have that format that is supporting you, great. But if you don't have that from the employees, which I can understand, they don't need to do that kind of work on their own. I think you always need that kind of support from the company, who is in the end also doing that growth plan. And you are just responsible for the people who are in your team to, of course, being able to work collaboratively in the end and efficiently. But there are a lot of activities that actually nutrate this team spirit that go completely aside or in parallel to what we are doing as managers or leaders. And that should continue because otherwise it's extremely difficult. I don't think that really one person can achieve it all, especially if you have, organic growth and you don't have an end and your team gets bigger and bigger and it gets at some point out of control. And you might have the issue as well that if you have like 5 people here and one person sitting alone in another place, might be fairly harder for the person who is sitting alone. And that's also why it's good to kind of balance so that people don't feel, no one feels alone at the beginning. And patience is key because from my own experience, this is nothing that has worked from one day to another or even in months or a year time. I think you really need to give time, give the people the chance to get together in person, because that's also a huge change when people who meet remotely every day are faced face to face and they are forced, you create the environment for them to sit down, you do activities for them to get to know each other, to laugh together as well. I used to even do online games sometimes for team events, just a simple 30-minute thing that we can all laugh together and to connect a little bit with the other person, because without connecting there is no empathy. So why would I want to work with someone who is making my work harder? I don't even know this person. I never saw its face. Yeah, so there's something that my grandma used to say: if you don't see it, you don't feel it. I think that's a must-have, that you get people together and bring them to them connection environment. Yeah, I think someone raised their hand.
Yes, Joshua, please.
Valentina, pleasure, and thank you for having this conversation today. I'm sorry I joined a little bit late, but wanted to ask a question, and it's maybe, and I know this is really challenging because really managing people, managing teams, and then managing diversity and wanting to grow that diversity is incredibly hard. So I really appreciate this conversation. What would be, from your experience, and I like to look at this from a cultural lens. I do this from time to time because I having consulted in organizations, across the board, I've seen culture impact a lot of decisions and a lot of thinking and framing, and it's also even hiring, as I've seen. What is like one, or maybe even two if you want to, but like what's at least that one or that key thing that you find that is a real challenge, that if you can fix something culturally, it really helps improve a better understanding of why diversity is so important and why it's better to, either evaluate, think, be more inclusive, be more diverse. What's your thoughts about that? What would be like that one thing that if you could change culturally about a company, it would really help improve?
To help improve, you mean the hiring of that diversity and retention and so on? Well,
Yes.
I think you need a support system, and it's like I said, you cannot only rely on your manager. For me, being diverse, coming from a different country, it was always important not only to have my manager respect me and see me as an individual and really not look into my particularities as a thing, but value them as something precious, was very important. But beyond that, to feel seen by my colleagues was very important, and always seen as an equal. And that is something that you need to found as well as a manager, talking to others and kind of bringing them to that place. But of course, it's also up to you, because supposedly you also hired those other people before. So I like to kind of address that already on recruitment processes. I think it's extremely important that you really address that diversity and openness need from the recruitment process, that when you interview, let's say, a very stereotypical person, that you really make sure that this person is open enough to afterwards receive people who are not like them. And this kind of team fit, human check, I take a lot of importance of that into the last phase of the interview. For me, the last check is always regarding how open is this person to feedback, how open is this person to something that is different to their own selves. And I have an advantage, I guess, because I always ask people to switch between two languages and to be as flexible as possible with myself, even at the beginning. And I am very, very flexible, and I like to keep that kind of open conversation and not be the stereotypical boss. That's for me very important, because if I am not that stereotypical boss, the people are going to be really open and honest with me. And I need to have honest and open people on my team if I want to have an easy situation in the end to manage between them as well. Of course, I had people who were fairly more complex in that area, and you need to do a lot of more work one-to-one, I guess, and show them other examples. And leading by example has worked really well for me. I always tell my people that I should be the person doing the hardest work and not them, and they should rely on me. And that, sometimes, that kind of old school of kind of image of being a boss, and the boss is the one that tells you what to do, and you do things because you're enforced to it. That sets a base that is not a good example for them, and they will somehow mimic that in the future, I guess, but with other people that are on their level or below. And that kind of respect as a must-have, and openness to hire someone at the beginning is key, because otherwise, it's at least with those people that maybe you didn't hire yourself, and you need to somehow nurture to bring to that point. But that happens a lot if you think about other environments, like education system, like a school or something. It's fairly more complex. And the teachers have a really, really hard task in that sense, to bring everyone together, because their socioeconomic backgrounds play a huge factor as well. And they really need to balance that. And with kids, it's a lot harder, because kids cannot reason like an adult, or you cannot bring them to the same level of of thinking. So I think we have a challenge, but in that sense, it's not an impossible mission. And if you can assess that already on the recruitment process, that you make sure that the people you're hiring will get along with other people that are different to them and open to collaborate, to provide feedback, and to receive also critic feedback with a nice attitude and not get angry and all of that. Yeah, you are on the good path, and I think you will do great. But there are exceptions. I think that's we cannot avoid it. And in a couple of meetings, sometimes some things might not be completely visible, but I try to do my best in that sense, to really talk with people openly and get a feeling. I hope this more or less answered your question. If you have any other following up doubts or any other points you want
No,
to
that was
dig
very
deeper,
helpful.
Joshua?
I appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you.
my
Thank
pleasure.
you, Josh. Thank you, Valentina. So we are almost on time. Anybody has a comment or a question before we wrap up this call? No? Okay. So, Valentina, anything else you want to share with all of us?
Well, I assume most of you are leaders here, so I like I said before, please try to lead by example in the sense of being compassionate, being empathetic towards your people first of all, and usually they will follow up on that. For me, it's very interesting to see now that I am in a new company, fairly new, like 6 months is for me very fresh still because I was 8 years in my previous company. I see that you need to take the time, and as months go by, even you already see the results and you think like, why did I think it was so hard? There it comes, you just need to do the work, and it's little steps usually. And you need to do little steps and just wait. And if nothing comes, do another little step, show them another example of what you think is right, of how you think you should relate with other people, work together with others, how you need to be compassionate towards others, differences or whatever you need to address that is not in common between yourselves. I think that people eventually will follow up on that. And the more people follow up on that, the more alone the person who does not follow will feel. And that's also very important, because then you have no other choice than to go along with the rest of the people and their attitude and so on. So step by step, little by little, gather your people, gather them on your side, and try to have real open and honest conversations around what are your differences and what is the beauty in that as well, and take advantage of that. It's a great thing. I mean, I was not going to address this as a specific thing, but for example, I am married to a woman, so I am openly gay since ages. I never say that on my own interviews, but after I am in the company, I am with a team, I am extremely open about it. I talk the whole time about my families. If my cats come into my lap while I'm working, I'm like, here, my cat. I don't try to hide things. I try to put everything on the open and just keep going and encourage the other people to do the same, and to not feel that because they're at work or working, they need to be so fixed and into their own things. We need to connect, and that's the only way, I think, in every aspect of life. And for me, it has been a very rich thing that I really did not think I would get. I thought I would move to Germany and I would have to completely adapt only to German ways and be German people and encapsulate myself in that. And in the end, the world started changing. I am so excited about this because it just means that it's okay if you don't feel that you're completely from here or from there and you are somewhere in the middle, or it's okay if you're different, because it's also not going to constrain if you can work with someone who is from the other side of the world. Nothing matters anymore in that sense. So I think everything is positive, and we just need to be able to show the people those benefits and what the real positivism is in that sense.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing all of that, Valentina. I'm happy you were with us today, and thank you all for being here. Yes, break internal barriers or external can work. Yes, I think that's my takeaway. Make everyone feel as comfortable as possible because you need to have some walls. Not everything is allowed. But thank you so much, everybody. Valentina, Lucia, Lindsay, Tiffany, all of you. Thank you, Josh. Uh, we have more content every week. If you want to be a part of these conversations, if you want to discuss in the private with me about leadership, it will be from any industry. We have had a few design leaders here, but last week we spoke with someone from dev relations. We will have someone from marketing, from finance. We speak about leadership every day. So please reach out to Diego Núñez on LinkedIn, or I put the website address on the chat. Please reach out. We want to help you. We are creating content. We are building even an agency. So your company can host something like this or want to sponsor something like this, please let me know how we can make leadership easier and you can have more people help you and we can be better leaders within our companies, with our teams, in our families, everywhere. So thank you so much, Tiffany. Thank you, everybody. Valentina, it was really,
Thank
really
you
nice
so
to see you.
much.
Please subscribe on LinkedIn and on the website so you have access to everything. So see you next time.
Thank you, Diego. Thank you, everyone. It was great. Hope to see you soon.
Ciao. Thank you.
Bye.